Hey guys, and welcome back to Z3 Cubing. Today I'm going to try again to get the fastest turning Rubik's Cube possible. So about a month ago, I created this cube in an attempt to create the fastest turning Rubik's Cube possible. Basically, I said I don't care how the cube performs as long as it is functional. I just want it to spin as far as possible when I flick it like this. Now, in order to create this cube, I made some pretty fun modifications to the mechanism. First off, I replaced the traditional screw and spring structure of the hardware with these maglev tensions right here. So you have two magnets repelling each other. That creates kind of a spring-like sensation in the cube. The idea is this would help reduce friction in the core, but it also helped out simply because it was weaker than a traditional spring would be, and so the pieces didn't clamp down as hard against each other, which also helped reduce friction in the pieces. I also put a total of 3 dimes in each piece of the cube, as you can see right here. The idea being that a heavier piece would take longer to slow down after you get it spinning, and so overall this cube is extremely heavy, extremely weird to use, but it does spin for quite a long time. And of course I also did everyone's favorite final step, just dumping a bunch of really fast lube in at the end. I would recommend going to watch that original video first if you haven't already, but basically today the goal is to take that exact same concept, get a brand new cube, and based off your suggestions from the comments of my last video, try and make an even faster cube than I did last time. So I'd say the #1 suggestion from that last video is to take out the springs. Don't replace them with maglev tensions or anything like that. Just take out the springs. You don't need them. Just have the screw going straight into the core, and since we don't really care about how the cube turns, we don't care if it flexes like a normal cube, so just take the springs out. We know that the weaker of springs we have on a cube, the faster it'll turn, so the weakest springs we can have is no springs. Now, one of those comments in particular that was telling me to take the springs out gave me the specific recommendation to use a cube with as strong of magnets as possible, like the Shengshou Mr. M 3x3. This seems counterintuitive because obviously you don't want magnets slowing down your cube by attracting together, but I think the idea is that the controllability that you lose in taking out the springs is made up for in the strong magnets. So I wanted to try this theory out, so I went ahead and picked myself up a Shengshou Mr. M 3x3. I figure if the magnets are slowing the cube down in the end, we can just take them out. So let's get this cube opened up and see what we have inside. So here's the cube. It looks like it is sort of wrapped in plastic, not anymore. So it looks like it has some weird texture on the pieces. That's kind of cool. Let's try it out. Oh man, those magnets are strong. I see what you mean there. That is like an extreme click every time. Wow, I would not want to speed solve with this. That is extremely clicky. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the springs out and see how this cube performs. Alright, so I have removed all the springs and tightened everything down so that hopefully pieces won't be flying out like crazy. So let's go ahead and see how the cube turns. That's actually not nearly as bad as I was expecting. The corner cutting definitely does suffer a lot because I had to tighten the cube down to get it so it wasn't super unstable. But yeah, the magnets definitely do add a lot of controllability, and that's actually pretty reasonable. Anyway, let's go ahead and see how far we can get it to turn. Oh, that was just about a U4. Looks like the magnets kind of push it in the opposite direction at the end there. Anyway, let's try again and see what we can get. That was a U4, very nice. Now I was just messing around off camera and I actually found that the yellow side is actually noticeably slower than other sides like the white side. I think we can get further on this one. That was just a U4 really easily. So let's flick really hard. Whoa, that was a U6. Okay, that's epic. But you know what? Like I guessed, I think the magnets in this cube are actually slowing it down significantly. You can definitely feel a lot of resistance with those really strong magnets every turn that you do. So I think the next logical step is to just take the magnets out of this cube and see how fast it becomes then. So onto the time lapse. Alright, so it turns out that the magnets in the corners of this cube are actually glued in, so you can't take those out, but I did take out all the magnets from the edges, and man, these are strong magnets, the strongest I've ever seen in a cube. That explains why there is such a strong magnetic feeling. Anyway, let's go ahead and try this cube out and see how fast it turns. It's going to be really hard to get this to be all nice and square, just because it's so loose and unstable now, but let's flick it. Oh, well, that was disappointing. Flick it. Okay, that was a U3 and a little bit. Doesn't seem to be going as far as it did before. Let's try another side maybe. That's a little bit further, but not super impressive. So I guess there was something about those strong magnets that was causing it to spin really, really fast and really far. That could be just the super stability of the entire cube as just one layer is turning, but that could also be the weight of the pieces. This cube is definitely a lot lighter now that there's no more magnets. So what I want to do now is try and add as much of that weight as possible back into the cube to try and see if we can get it faster than it was before the magnets. So after looking inside the pieces, I know that dimes won't fit in this cube, so I can't do the same thing as last time to try and weigh down the pieces, but what I do have is a bunch of these little tiny magnets, not to magnetize the pieces with, but just to weigh down the pieces. So I'm going to try and stick as many of these little tiny magnets inside each of the pieces as possible, and hopefully that'll bring some of the weight back that we lost to make this cube turn as fast as possible. Let's start with the time lapse. All right, there's now 32 of these individual magnets in each of the 8 corner pieces on this cube for a grand total of 256 little tiny magnets. The cube is definitely quite a bit heavier now than it was originally. So let's go ahead and test our theory and see if the weight added that much to the speed of the pieces. So let's go ahead and try a turn to see how far we can get. All right, that was a little over a U3, not bad. Yeah, about a U3, not too impressive on the white side. Let's see if any side is a little bit faster. You know, yellow actually feels pretty fast nowadays. Okay, that was almost a U4. Let's set it down on the table, see if we can get a U4. Yeah, very solid U4. So that's pretty decent for not having any lube yet, but we were actually getting quite a bit faster turning when we did have magnets inside all the pieces attracting together, which doesn't really make sense because you'd think there'd be a lot more resistance to the turning when you have magnets pulling them together. And the pieces are at least as heavy as they used to be. So the only other thing I can think of is that the stability caused by those magnets really just help the pieces kind of stay all together, stay nice and square, like what I'm doing when I'm setting it on the table like this. So I guess that stability, the fact that all the pieces in a layer are just kind of stuck together as one big unit, is more beneficial to the speed of the turning than the fact that the pieces attracting each other is harmful to the turning. So I guess my only option left now is to cheat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the magnets back into the edge pieces, except the 4 of them right where this layer is. That way all the pieces will be all nice and stable, all nice and held together, except you don't have the magnets on this one layer slowing it down. So yeah, this definitely is cheating because we're choosing what pieces to put magnets in and what pieces we aren't. So it doesn't function exactly like a normal cube, but I mean, you can still turn it like a normal cube, so I guess it's kind of fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, put those magnets back in most of the edges. I'm pretty convinced this is gonna be the fastest configuration we can possibly get. So at the same time, I'm also gonna be lubing the screws with Lubical Black to make sure there's as little friction in the core as possible. Let's start the time lapse. Alright, I put all the magnets back in except the ones magnetizing the white side. White seemed to be the fastest earlier, so I figured I'd have the best chance with that one. All the hardware is all lubed up and ready to go, so let's see how fast we can turn this white side. Oh my gosh, that went a little over some multiple of 4. So I think that was a U8. I think that rounds to a U9. Let's get a slow motion replay of that. Yeah, a U9. That's ridiculous. Let's go for something bigger than 9. Okay, was that a U8, 9, 10? I think that was a U10. I'm gonna have to check the footage on that one. Okay, that was crazy. You know what? We still do have one more thing that could possibly make this cube go a little bit faster. That is putting some fast lubes in. So we have DNM37 right here, just the all-around great fast piece lube. And also Max Fleet is a pretty new one that has some interesting properties. Let's go ahead and try both of these out. I'm going to put a couple of drops of DNM37. I know putting lube in at this point isn't going to make it too much faster. And if you put too much in, it'll just make it go slower. So let's be really careful with this. Okay, let's break that in and see what happens. Yeah, even on the sides with the magnets, this is even more ridiculous than the last cube was. Let's get it lined up. It's really hard to align this layer because if you even just touch it, it just goes flying. Okay. All right, I'm going to say that was either a U8 or a U12. Let's check. All right, one more time with the DNM37. Let's set it down on the table, get everything nice and square, and get one really good flick in. Alright, those are some amazing U-moves going on. We still do have one more secret weapon though, that is Max Fleet, the recently released super fast piece lube from thecubicle.com. So let's go ahead and put some of this inside of the pieces and see if we can get it a little bit faster than it already is. And there we go, all the way across there. That is plenty, probably even too much. So let's go ahead and get this cube broken in and see how it turns out. Alright, it's time for the final test. With every trick I could possibly think of, let's try and get one really good flick in and see if we can get, I don't know, a U12 or something ridiculous like that. Okay, I have no idea what that was. Let's check the footage. Wow, I'm actually finding that it's easier to flick the cube really hard when you're holding it like this instead of setting it on the table. I guess the magnets make everything all nice and square without you having to set it down and align everything. And one more final time to see how far we can go. Let's try it. Okay, I think that was a U12. Let's check. And it was. That was incredible. So I think we have accomplished our goal of getting the absolute fastest turning cube as we possibly can. If you guys can get a cube to turn further than that, go ahead and show me because I don't believe you. That was amazing. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I enjoyed making it, and I'll see you guys next time.